Peace, 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 my brothers and sisters, kings and queens, gods and goddesses, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, this is number 5. It's the 5 of class, number 5. I put out a paragraph, and out of the destruction of the black civilization, the great issues of the race from 4500 BC to 2000 AD, excuse me. I want to show you that. And what I'm going to be talking about is the political organization. Remember I told you about the titles and things like that? Well, I'm going to read about the titles. I'm going to read about the titles and understand why these people are given these titles. Get a better definition. But you already know what we're going to do next before we get into reading this little paragraph to get you a better understanding and how and where these people get these titles and why these titles are used. And they were used back in ancient times. And are used to this day. So some of you take these words that we use, or that I use, other people use, and you take it out of content. You make yourself less than. I don't make myself less than. I bring myself into a higher level. The reason why is so that my mind will be able to identify and move faster, to collaborate faster, to be able to identify what people are using out their own mouth, and be able to recognize what they're saying, and if they are being a certain kind of level that I can use and be able to identify what they're saying out their mouth. So before we do that, let's go in. Give all praises to the Creator of the universe. The sun rises. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Amun. Peace, 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 peace to the brothers and the sisters, the ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens, and gods and goddesses. I am Chocolate Amun Ra. Now, understanding ancient civilization. I'm going to read about one specific group. The group is called Kuba, K-U-B-A, Kuba. If you already have this book, you already know what I'm about to read. 227 is the page. Central Africa. Central Africa. The government of Kuba. Okay? Pay attention. The Council of State. A. The king presenting. B. The linguist, interpreter, and special aid to king. C. The chief of chiefs, prime minister. The title, chief of chiefs. Actually, that of the king. Here it means to say to all chiefs of Kuba. Actually, when you see and speak to my chief minister, you see and speak to the king. Understand this. It's like using a vice president. Okay? The vice president, when he speaks to whatever minister or any council from another country, when they're speaking to the vice president, you're really speaking to the president. So on and so forth. Understand this concept. This is how it was done in ancient times. Let me read that again. When you see and speak to my chief minister, you see and speak to the king. The chief minister is, he's a representation of the king. The governors of province of paramount chiefs. Each paramount chief or one of these elected generals was in supreme command of all military forces in his province. The king, who was also the governor of his particular tribal province, had only the soldiers of his province under his command. 2. Administrators, not members of the state council. A. First chief of the treasurer. B. Chief of the border defense. C. Supervisor general of tax collection, goods and services. D. Chief of the king household and protector of the ancestral tombs and regula. E. Chief of roads and markets. F. Collector of general for tributary states. This office was created the wake of Mun and Ling's, bear with me, Bunging, a Linging imperialist exposition in 1650. There were 26 kings during the 342 years of the Koban history, from about 1568 to 1910. As in the case of the Ethiopia, Egypt, and Makura, and the other states studied, here and only few of the outstanding leaders will be mentioned, and thus Rigid limited the scope. We necessarily pass over many great leaders and important events, just as we shall be doing in the case of Cuba. Here also we are not as interested in the chronicles details as we are in such things in the development of the national policy to unite diverse tribes and development of national policies of unite diversities, tribes, and patriotics, development of the national policies to unite, why keep we mean the same thing? Devotion to one nation and other policies that would clearly defeat the objective. The founder of the founders of a nation, the nation constitute the specially honored groups throughout the Africa, and it was the source of royalty itself. So Cuba was still following the African constitutions. No, it's not. Constitutions. When it's made to the central nuclear group of 18 founders, the paramount ruling council to the exclusion of strangers in Africa. All those who came after the community of the nation is established, yet is equally clear that as a newcomer increase the population as the nation expand by the conquering neighbor's society. This is in the book of the destruction of the black civilization. Now forgive me, y'all, for forgiveness, because I was moving so fast and I mispronounced some words, and then I had to go back, and you heard me go over it several times like that. So, because it ain't about trying to be perfect all the time. Not explaining myself, and just letting you know I'll make mistakes sometimes. But, and I'll say it to you, and I'll say it to you again. If you got the book, you go to page 227, the government of Cuba. The reason why I went there is to show you in ancient civilization how they had names and titles, and they gave them these things because they have responsibility. They had treasures. Okay? They had people that was responsible for many things. You had a chief. The chief represented the king. Like you got the president and the vice president. You got the treasurer. But the vice president, his entitlement and his duties, he will make trips around the world if the president can't do it. But when that vice president make those trips in any foreign land, what comes out his mouth is representation of the president. You understand that? Now, I told you about these words. These words are entitlement. When these people get these entitlements, it makes them feel good. They got a responsibility. But remember this, these responsibilities is the real deal. If you got to mind the border, you got to tax the people. You got to go out there and do that. You can't do that. You're going to get your job. Just like, you know, they sit down here and the presidency says, listen, everybody, taxes, we're going to do this to the taxes, so on and so forth. This is real. They didn't create this shit. This shit been done a long time ago. Excuse my foul language. Okay? All these things that I've read, the king's presidency, the language, the chief, all these different people, the first chief of treasurer, then you got the chief of the border, defense, and then you got the supervisor, the general of the tax collector, right? The chief of the roads and the markets. That's his or her job. These are different titles. Understand this. Now, I know some of you are probably saying, well, you're not using it for that concept. No, I'm not using it for that concept to a certain degree. Okay, like when I go to my job, I have a title for my job. It's so people could recognize you. So people could recognize who you are. It's so people could recognize what you're doing. So if they need you, they will come to you. They need you for specific things, they will come to you. If the person that's hiding me is not there, guess what? I have to represent that person that's hiding me. You understand? Just like the mother and the father. The mother and the father, they are the kings and queens of the house, the household. Now I'm going to entwine all these things together. Pay attention. I read this so you can be able to understand that. Those who has the book, The Destruction of the Black Civilization, I told you I'm going to take different paragraphs and use it so you'll get a better understanding as I entwine all these things together here in modern time. The mother and the father are the kings and the queens. The mother and the father is the god and the goddesses. You understand? Your children are young gods and goddesses, or prince, princess, whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm saying? Your children's that because you're going to raise them to be what? Great. You're going to raise them to be great. Some of y'all, unfortunately, you don't know how to raise your children to be great. Unfortunately, some of you do not raise your children to be that. You're going to raise your children to be money-hungry individuals. You raise your children to go out there and take. And sometimes, you mothers and fathers, you're not going to raise your children at all, and they're going to raise themselves. And what happens is the streets get a hold of them. The streets has no name, no friend. But everybody who, in whatever position they in, will raise your children, and they'll become monsters. Some will see a light, and some will see that the people that was help raise them to a certain degree, it's going to tell them, get off the streets. You don't belong here. I don't want to see you here. Get a book and read it, because they're trying to save them from becoming like them. But you don't want your children to be doing that, would you? You think you know about society. You think you know about, this is society. You don't know nothing about society. You don't know nothing about that. You got to taste that medicine. You got to taste that. I showed you where I live at. I live in the projects. And now I want to go, now I'm moving to get myself a home. I'm going to get myself a home. Because the projects is not good for me. And my family, it's not good for me. Because you can't really raise your children to a certain point. Some will make it out of the projects. I'm not saying that projects is a bad place, but you have too many demons. Now, when I use the word demons, it means bad people. Because people make their choice on what they're going to do, good or bad. So you got too many people whose influence on the way the society is. Drugs, alcohol, okay, having fast money, false religions. Pay attention to what I'm saying to you, okay? You got all these different things out here. You got great things out here that's being done in the community too now. Don't get it twisted. It takes special people It takes special people to put these things together. Great things. Because they don't want these children to get caught out here. I'm Chocolate Amun Ra. It's number 4. Peace.